but a food processor is definitely not one of them. Sometimes a dehydrator is really important. There's a lot of things that you would want to use a dehydrator for. A juicer is often also very important, but I think in most cases you can do without the juicer if you're just beginning, but a food processor is absolutely a must. All right, so the next dish we're going to make is classic, and I say that again in parentheses, classic pasta marinara. And of course, it's a raw version of the classic pasta marinara. Why is it different? Because primarily we're of course not using noodles here, okay? Noodles would be cooked, that wouldn't be raw. So we're going to use a different item for that. First thing we want to do is make our sauce, okay? Of course, a tomato sauce is what we're going to get. So I've got roughly 7 Roma tomatoes here, just kind of quartered. I'm going to put those into my food processor. And this sauce you could really, I mean, I've made this and thought to myself I could almost eat it by itself. It's just that good. And then, keep this bowl. Then we have about 2 cups of sun-dried tomatoes that have been soaking. Okay, and you soak them because when they're dried, they are so heavy and concentrated that if you were to try to chop them in your food processor, you'd put an awful lot of strain on your food processor. So we soak them to help them get soft and to make them workable. So I'm just going to take them out of my liquid. I haven't yet found a use for the liquid yet, but I'm one of those people that I hate to throw things away, so one of these days I will find a use for that. When I make my carrot juice in the morning, I actually have developed a recipe that uses all the pulp, so I don't have to throw the pulp away. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to now put these also into our food processor. And you wouldn't want to try to make it without the sun-dried tomatoes because they are what makes it taste like pasta sauce. Because they have been so concentrated, they have that really heavy tomatoey flavor like a pasta sauce would. All right, and then we're going to add 4 cloves of garlic, which I have already chopped here. And I encourage you that if you are going to cook with garlic to get fresh. I know it comes in a jar and it's much more convenient, but by the time they've put it in the jar and they've heat processed the jar to seal it, you've lost a lot of the goodness of the product. You've lost a lot of the nutrient. Again, my philosophy is the more the raw, the better. And we didn't talk briefly at the beginning this time about what is raw cooking. The philosophy of raw cooking is that anytime you have kept food heated under 116 to 120 degrees, it's still considered raw. That's why a dehydrator in some cases is okay. Now, some dehydrators will go up to 135 or 150 degrees. So if you're really trying to stay in that raw realm, you want to make sure that you keep your dehydrator low. So, and again, there's a few different schools of philosophy on exactly what that temperature should be. All right, so we've got our garlic in there. Then we want roughly half a teaspoon of salt, preferably Celtic sea salt if you can get it. Some types of sea salt is always best. If you have even better resources, you want to go with Himalayan sea salt. And again, on your question about sodium, if you are sodium sensitive, Himalayan sea salt is probably the best sea salt that you can get. It adds something like 8 minerals to our body that we don't get anywhere else. Plus, it is so concentrated that you need less and you get more flavor. And again, as I say, I'm somebody who tends to be sensitive to salt, so this is a big deal for me. I have to be really careful. So if I can add less and taste it more, all the better. All right, then we're going to add I'm going to go to our virgin olive oil. 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. And this is one of those things that's very easy to buy organic. They do sell that here at Food City, so I encourage you whenever you can to go organic with what you can. And I understand nobody's going to go organic overnight, but if it's something that you can just begin to make little changes, this is a good place to start. That was probably one of the first items that I started buying organic. All right, and then we're going to add some lemon juice. Oh. I've actually got that in this. I've put that in there. So thank you for asking though, because I noticed I skipped over that, and I did put it all in this other portion. So we're still going to get that. Okay. A couple of tablespoons of lemon juice. And lemons are a staple in my house. I don't ever not have lemons because they add such a nice bright flavor to things. Okay, so lemon juice. And then we're going to add our dried spices. And let's see, 2 teaspoons of oregano, 1.5 teaspoons, 1 to 2 oregano. And again, in the summertime, if you can get fresh, I encourage you to do that.
Did you substitute all of the dried and fresh?
I usually use a little bit of the dried as well, just because the flavor is a little bit more concentrated. But play around with it and do what you like. As I say, in the summertime, if you can get the fresh, there's really nothing to me like fresh basil. In fact, I'm going to add some fresh basil because they had it here in the produce section today. And in the wintertime, I go through basil withdrawal because it's just so wonderful. It tastes so good. It's good on just about anything. I just put it in salad sometimes just because it tastes that wonderful. And again, it's one of those things that is just so good for you. So here we have a nice little fresh bunch of basil. I'm just going to cut the stems off, and I'm going to use this whole bunch. Okay. I'm going to put all of that right in there. All right, and then the last ingredient for the sauce says agave nectar or pitted dates. I wasn't able to find either of those here today. I know that from time to time they do have them. So I'm just merely using a little bit of honey. Honey is an excellent choice to substitute. Anybody know what agave nectar is? Okay. Correct. Yes, it's a cactus, liquid out of a cactus that they processed into a sweetener. All right, so that's everything that's going to go in there. I'm going to keep my oil handy because I may add a little bit more of that as we blend this up. Go ahead and put our top on and let her rip. Going to add a little bit more oregano. And I'm one of those people that I start with a recipe and I never make the same thing twice because you throw in a little of this and throw in a little of that. And a little bit more rosemary. Take and assemble the other part of it because, as we said before, we don't have noodles, right? So what are we going to do for our noodles? we are going to substitute zucchini for our noodles. Haha, pretty cool, huh? So anybody who's ever had a garden, this is a great way to use your garden bounty in the summertime. So what do? How do we create a noodle out of it?
Yeah.
What? Are you not a zucchini fan? She's not gonna.
Zucchini bread.
You like zucchini bread?
Yes.
Well, you're not gonna actually taste the zucchini because zucchini actually, in my opinion, has kind of a benign flavor. It's not really out there. So once you put all the rest of these ingredients on there, this is just really your noodle. I mean, when you think about it, a pasta noodle doesn't have all that much flavor either, does it? Not really. So then you add all these other ingredients, and that's what really usually makes it taste good. So what we've done here is you're simply going to take your zucchini and take your handy dandy little vegetable peeler, and you just simply create noodles. This is a really fun thing if you have kids or grandkids that want to help you in the kitchen. They love to do this. Of course, it's very safe, so they can go ahead and help out. You could also use a yellow summer squash. I've used that before. Flying zucchinis. What is that? The trapeze artists years ago, the flying Melindas or whatever, flying gambinis. We have flying zucchinis. Okay, so you get the general idea, all right? And usually you're going to get it down to a little bit smaller than that, and you're not going to be able to peel anything off anymore. So you can either chop it up and put it in a salad, you throw it away if you're not a big fan of it. Okay. Okay, then you will probably like this. So as you can see, I've got quite a bit of it here. I'm going to go ahead and put that into our big serving bowl. And what's nice is that we're still using the part of it that has the skin, so you're adding that beautiful green color. Set this aside. And then in this dish, what I have is some sliced onion and some sliced, very thinly sliced yellow pepper. You could use red pepper if you prefer. I ask you to not use green pepper. And the reason is that technically a green pepper is not really ripe. Most of us probably know at least one person who says they cannot eat green pepper because it bothers their digestive system. That's why, because technically it's not ripe. So please do not use green pepper, unless it's a jalapeno. That's kind of a different story. But you're going to use your, I've chosen the yellow here. As I said, you could use red. You could even use orange if you like the orange pepper. I've also got some mushrooms in here. And what I did was put some balsamic vinegar and some olive oil and some lemon juice. And then I also added some of that little dried spice mixture that we used before, the oregano, the basil, and the thyme. Thank you. And just kind of mix it up and let it sit and stir it every now and then. What this does essentially is it sort of begins to cook, quote unquote, in the acid of the vinegar and the lemon juice. So they begin to wilt and they begin to break down into a softer consistency, which is what you would normally get if you had sauteed them prior to making your sauce. Okay? So we're simply going to dump that in, liquid and all. And I'm going to take my other set of tongs. I'm going to mix it up a little bit before we add our sauce, just to make sure we get all of the flavors mixed in there really well. Again, you can see this is something that does not take a whole lot of time. And I think that's one of the things I love so much about raw cooking is that it takes a whole lot less time than actually cooking something. And then, of course, you don't have to scrub pans when you get done. All right, let's see here. If I can figure out how to get this off. I had a little trouble with that last time. There we go. Just got to muscle it. And we dump in our sauce. See how nice and thick that is? It's wonderful. If you were kind of just going semi-raw, you could, even put this on pasta noodles if you really wanted. That way you're getting all that benefit of the wonderful raw ingredients from the sauce. But use whole wheat pasta. At least go halfway healthy with the pasta, right? There we go. And let me set that aside. And continue to mix. Again, it just looks so pretty, all the colors in it, and it smells, like I said, it smells wonderful. Anything to me that has fresh basil in it, I could just dive right in the whole bowl. This is one of those dishes that if you know a real old-fashioned Italian and you think that they probably would not be real keen on the raw foods diet, I would serve this dish to them first and wait to see what their reaction is. And they just would probably go crazy. All right. Questions about this dish?
What is the raw foods philosophy about cheese?
Cheese is processed, and so it is technically not raw. It is cooked. So we do not do cheese. Now, that being said, you know, one of the biggest questions I get from people is, do you do this 100% of the time? And the answer is no. I don't want to make it out like I do to anybody, because in today's society, with how busy we are and all the things that we have going on and our limited time to be home preparing, that would be really crazy to even try to do that. Now, I honor somebody who has the ability to do that, but I don't think it's realistic. And I think that being realistic with our time, creating balance, you know, being as healthy as we can with what amount of time we have makes sense. If we're going to stress ourselves out about trying to be raw foods advocates or whatever, you know, that's going to create more stress than if we were just eating junk food and just, you know, flying high and just happy. So we have to create that balance, that balancing state. A little bit of cheese in your diet would probably be fine.
A little bit of cheese on that.
You could, sure, certainly. You know, as I said earlier, nothing is 100%. You don't have to be 100% if you don't want to. Now, that being said, there are some people that I know, because of health concerns, because of digestive problems, they do have to do it 100%. Otherwise, they're sick. So I think it depends. It's about learning what your body needs, learning what your body says, hearing your body speak to you after you eat certain foods, and then figuring out what the right balance is. A perfect example of hearing your body speak to you, or understanding about how to eat raw foods, is fruit. I hear a lot of people say to me that they cannot eat fruit because it bloats them, it gives them gas, something like that. Really, if you're going to eat fruit, you need to eat fruit on an empty stomach, because fruit is digested so quickly that if you eat it with anything else, it slows down the digestive process. What happens to fruit when it begins to break down? It turns into, it ferments, right? And it putrefies. So if you've got other foods that are in your system at the same time, while you are trying to digest fruit, that fruit begins to turn into something not so comfortable. So if you're going to eat fruit, you should eat it on an empty stomach. So that's just one sort of small little tidbit of an example of how to eat raw foods properly, so that you can ease your digestion, so that things work okay, so that you're comfortable, and so that you still get proper absorption. So I know that was kind of off the subject from the cheese, but
pine nuts.
Yeah, well, thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, I did set these over here, and you do see on your little recipe packet that I've got a little note off to the side that if you want to add a little bit of protein to your dish, you can either add some soaked pumpkin seeds, or some pine nuts are an excellent source of protein, or some chopped walnuts to this one would be excellent. So I do have those. I'm going to go ahead and dump those in. If you've never had a pine nut, I encourage you to try them. They're a little bit expensive, but the nutrient content is just phenomenal. So if you're somebody who's trying to get more protein into your diet, something like pumpkin seeds or the pine nuts are an excellent choice. Believe it or not, there are also a lot of vegetables that have protein. So if you're somebody who's considering this philosophy and you've had issues with protein, getting enough protein before, then you could certainly make it up without eating a whole lot of meat. So I know that that's a real concern for a lot of people. So, all right, now we've got the pine nuts in there. I'm not missing anything else. I know. Okay. Any other questions? No? All right, great. Well, then it's time to eat. Everybody can just come.